one of the hallmarks of this scandal-ridden time in our national life, one of the hallmarks of this unprecedentedly scandal-ridden presidency is, unfortunately, that very serious things, very shocking things even, tend to just pass by. Right? Even the most serious things, they just pass by. I mean, the president's campaign chairman was sent to prison. The president's deputy campaign chairman was also sent to prison. The president's self-named charity was shut down as an ongoing criminal enterprise, and his children are henceforth restricted by law from even being associated with charities. The president's self-named fake university was shut down as a scam as well, and he had to pay $25 million to settle fraud claims against it. And, you know, it's easy to forget, but the president was also impeached. And yes, then the president retaliated against all of the witnesses who testified in his impeachment hearings. The president personally intervened to change the FBI's plans for its new headquarters building in a way that would benefit his own downtown Washington, D.C. hotel. The president's sister had to resign as a federal judge to avoid an ethics inquiry into alleged fraud and tax evasion schemes that she and the president benefited from in terms of the family fortune they both inherited. She gave up her lifetime appointment as a judge so that would not be looked at. The president's cabinet secretaries and high-level appointees, you know, national security advisors, defense secretaries, White House chiefs of staff, White House communications directors, hand-picked senior advisors. They've all basically run screaming from the White House, warning publicly about how dangerously unfit he is to be anywhere near the office of the presidency. All his own hand-picked people. Even now, he is still randomly promoting a supposed miracle cure for coronavirus, literally telling Americans they should take the drug, and he is too. The drug is both disproven as a cure or a preventative for coronavirus, and, oh, by the way, it kills some people. Those endorsements of his miracle cure were both before and after he suggested that maybe Americans should ingest disinfectants to clean out the virus from inside our bodies. I mean, this is the president who put the guy who gave Jeffrey Epstein his get-out-of-jail-free card in the cabinet. Remember Alex Acosta? Remember what he had to resign over? Yeah. This is the president who put his son's wedding planner in charge of federal housing in the northeastern United States. I mean, just in the past couple of weeks, we learned this president was told that Russia was paying cash bounties for the killing of American soldiers. He was told that and did nothing about it at all. He was offered a menu of possible acts of retaliation against Russia for them doing that. He chose, on this menu, I'll take nothing. I will do nothing. I mean, these things they just pass by. I mean, it's quite literally hard to keep track of them. It's my job to keep track of them. It's hard to keep track of them. I mean, this is the president who pressured the post office to go after Amazon because he doesn't like the way the newspaper owned by the Amazon guy covers him and his presidency. This is the president who fired an inspector general, among many he fired. He fired one inspector general who was investigating the Secretary of State and his wife, and he fired that inspector general because the Secretary of State asked him to. Sure, of course, that's kosher. This is the president who tried to get the G7 meeting held at his own golf club in Florida. This is the president who advertised his wife's jewelry line on the White House website, complete with the trademark note. This president apparently believes that Frederick Douglass is still alive and that the statue of a random Bronco rider in his office is Teddy Roosevelt. This is the president who randomly took a surprise urgent emergency trip to Walter Reed Military Hospital and won't say what for. This president changed a hurricane forecast into one he liked better than the real one and then made the National Weather Service say they agreed with his made-up version. I mean, where do you begin? These things, like, just pick a week. Pick a week that he's been in office or running for office. Throw a dart. You can name something like this, right? Along these lines. I mean, any individual one of these things would be among the biggest scandals, if not the biggest scandal, to ever afflict any other presidency. But by virtue of the sheer number of scandals that surround him like flies around Pigpen, these have just become part of what we expect, right? We have a little momentary shock and a short period of interest with each new low blow, but then we just wait for the next one. And they all just pass by. And the most common reason they get pushed off the front page is because another newer scandal comes along to squeeze them out.